In the quiet tides of human connection, where souls brush like wind over tall grass, a man must learn not only to speak, but to withhold, not as a deception, but as a sacred dance, a knowing pause between the notes of a deeper melody. For what we choose not to reveal is often as meaningful as what we bear. There are truths too vast to be held in the hands of words, moments of pain or purpose that belong only to the silence within. And in that silence, a man becomes not a mystery to be solved, but a cosmos unfolding, his restraint, a kind of reverence for the ineffable. Life does not ask us to be fully understood, only to be in tune with the rhythm it plays. And so a man learns to carry 5 sacred flames in his shadow, not to hide from love, but to honor it, because even silence, when placed wisely, becomes part of the divine design. There's something quietly profound in the way a man faces the trials that life hands him, the kind of trials that come unannounced, disguised as ordinary days or silent hours when the world isn't watching. These are not the challenges we broadcast or seek comfort for. No, these are the inner battles fought behind the eyes, in the stillness of dawn or the dark hush of a sleepless night. And here's the thing, some battles are meant to be fought alone. You see, there's a sacredness to solitude, a kind of spiritual crucible where a man is refined by fire no one else can see. Not even the woman he loves, especially not her, because to bring her into that space too soon, into the trembling, unfinished place where pain has not yet become understanding, is not intimacy. It's interruptions, not that he's hiding out of pride or fear. It's that certain moments demand silence, reflection, stillness. Imagine trying to explain the thunder of a storm while it's still rumbling through the sky. It doesn't make sense. You don't narrate lightning, you survive it. You become something through it, and later perhaps you speak of it, but only after it has passed through you completely. When a man faces his demons, his doubts, his failures, he enters a kind of wilderness. And like all true initiations, this passage cannot be shared, not because he doesn't love her, but because love cannot carry him through it. He must walk that path alone, barefoot and raw, with no applause, no explanation, no rescue. And that is not a tragedy. That is a transformation. There's a rhythm to this world, a sacred geometry, if you will. Day fades to night, winter follows autumn. Leaves fall not because they've failed, but because it is time. And in the same way, a man must learn when to speak and when to withhold, not out of calculation, but out of reverence for the process itself. We must allow our inner winters to come without trying to decorate them as spring. Now, of course, our culture doesn't tell us this. It tells us to be transparent, to open up, to share every scar and shadow. But there's a great difference between vulnerability and premature exposure. A fruit picked before its time is bitter. A truth spoken before its meaning has ripened is often misunderstood. And so a man, if he is wise, learns to withhold not from fear, but from love, to give space to his own becoming. And the woman, if she is wise to, will sense this. She will not press against the quiet, but wait beside it. She will understand that what is not yet spoken is not necessarily a rejection. It is a reverence for the unseen threads being woven within. Because this is not about deception. It's about dignity, about not placing the sacred on the table too soon, like coins in the hand of someone who has not yet learned their value. There are things a man must endure in silence, not because he doesn't trust her, but because he must first learn to trust what this pain is making of him. And when he emerges, weathered, wiser, quieter, he will not need to explain what happened in the dark. She will see it in his eyes, in his posture, in the way he holds space without rushing to fill it. In this way, what he hides becomes not a barrier, but a bridge, a passage from who he was to who he is becoming. So let us not mistake silence for distance or solitude for sacredcy. Sometimes in the stillness, a man is not disappearing. He is being written anew by the hand of something far greater. And in the end, the most sacred parts of a man's journey are those no one else ever sees, but they echo in everything he touches. There's a curious thing about purpose. It doesn't arrive with trumpets. It doesn't knock politely at the door and announce itself with a confident voice. No, real purpose often begins as a whisper, a faint pull in the chest, a subtle stirring of the soul, asking you to follow something you can't yet name. And for a man, this whisper is everything. It is the thread that, when followed, begins to unravel the deeper meaning of his life. But here's what most people don't understand. A man's purpose is not always meant to be shared too soon. Not even with the woman he loves. Not because she can't hold it, but because it hasn't yet taken form. It's like trying to explain the shape of a tree while it's still a seed in the soil. There's nothing wrong with the seed. It's just not ready to be seen. Purpose is fragile in its early stages. It's not the loud ambition we parade on resumes or social media. It's not the borrowed dream or inherited idea of success. It's a quiet conviction that wakes a man up at strange hours and asks him to walk a road no one else can see. And like all sacred things, it requires protection. Because the world has a habit of mocking what it doesn't yet understand. And sometimes so does love. When a man begins to speak his vision too early, before it's taken root within him, it can be met with doubt, with fear, even with unintentional discouragement. Not because the woman means harm, but because she's hearing something for which even the man has no full language yet. And so it wavers, falters, it forgets what it's becoming. Not every sacred fire survives the wind of early explanation. So a man must at times hide his vision, not as a secret, but as a sanctuary. He holds it in silence like a sculptor guarding his block of marble, not because he's unsure of its beauty, but because the chastening has only just begun. He doesn't yet know what shape it will take. All he knows is that it's alive inside him. And for now, that is enough. You see, love doesn't always understand purpose. It wants to keep you close to nest and rest and hold. But purpose is wild. It leads a man away from comfort into solitude, into long nights of uncertainty, into strange lands within himself. A man walking toward his vision may appear distant, distracted, even cold, not because he loves her less, but because he's being pulled by something older than language, something sacred. And the woman, if she does not yet see this, may feel abandoned. She may try to tether him back with questions, concerns, even tenderness. But a man cannot give what he does not yet have. He must become who he is meant to be before he can offer himself fully. And so he walks quietly, inwardly, toward that distant flame. When his purpose has ripened, when the vision has roots and language and strength, then it can be shared. Then it can be spoken and not shattered, welcomed and not misunderstood. And in that moment, it is not just his gift, it becomes a gift to her too. Because the man who has found his purpose brings something to the relationship that cannot be faked, clarity, direction, and depth. And so sometimes he hides it not out of deception, but as devotion to its unfolding. He protects the flame until it becomes a fire. Because the truth is, a man's silence is not always a sign of absence. Sometimes it is the quiet of something magnificent in the making. And in the stillness of that becoming, a man does not lose himself. He finally begins to arrive. There's a certain charm in not knowing everything about a person, a kind of poetry in the mystery. And yet, we live in a time that worships complete transparency. We're told to be open books, to lay ourselves bare in the name of vulnerability, to share every thought, every fear, every crack in our hearts the moment it appears. But here's the deeper truth. The soul does not thrive in constant exposure. And a man, if he is wise, does not make himself fully known, not even to the woman he loves most. That might sound strange, even wrong, at first, but pause with me a moment. Consider the stars. You look up at the night sky and see them glittering with brilliance, suspended in the vast dark like eternal secrets. And yet, even the stars do not show you everything. Their light is ancient, delayed, filtered through cosmic distance. Their cores burn quietly, hidden from the eye. Still, they shine, and we do not resent them for their mystery. We revere them for it. In much the same way, a man must understand that to be loved does not mean to be fully explained. There is beauty in what is kept sacred. There is power in what is held within. The parts of himself he chooses not to reveal are not lies, nor walls. They are landscapes still being discovered, even by him. And to offer those too soon, to try and unravel the full tapestry before the threads have formed, is not intimacy, it's erosion. Mystery is not the enemy of connection. Mystery is its invitation. It's what keeps two people leaning forward across the table of life, still curious, still drawn in. And when a man preserves a space inside himself, quiet, untouched, unknowable, he's not hiding from her. He's allowing the relationship to breathe. He's saying there is more, always more. And that is a gift. You see, when everything is exposed, when nothing is left in shadow, something vital dies, the dance ends. The soul, like a fire, needs air around it to stay lit. If you smother it with too much explanation, too much self-analysis, too much need to be understood, you put out the very flame that made it worth watching in the first place. Now, this doesn't mean a man should be distant or closed off. It doesn't mean he should use mystery as a weapon or as a way to avoid connection. What it means is that some parts of him, his inner wilderness, his still, forming thoughts, his sacred questions, are not meant to be mapped just yet. They are not secrets. They are sanctuaries. And the woman, if she is wise, will feel this too. She will sense that the space he protects is not a void, but a garden, that he is not withholding love, but cultivating something deeper than words. For when we demand to be fully known, we often miss the wonder of simply being witnessed. Fully knowing another is not the goal. Being present with their unfolding is. So let the man keep some things hidden. Let him be a little unknowable. Let the relationship breathe in the quiet thrill of discovery, not the pressure of completion. For just as the moon does not show its face all at once, nor does the ocean give up all its depths in a single glance, so too must a man preserve a part of himself that answers only to the stars. Because in a world desperate to be seen, the rarest thing is a soul at peace with being partially understood. And in that mystery, love does not vanish, it matures. There are sorrows a man carries that do not belong in another's hands, not because he doesn't trust, but because he knows some burdens are too sacred, too heavy, too unfinished to share. Not every pain needs to be spoken to be real. Not every wound needs to be revealed to be healed. In fact, there are griefs that, when exposed too early, lose the quiet dignity that gives them meaning. A man must sometimes learn to suffer in silence, not out of pride, but out of love. You see, pain has its own intelligence. It comes to teach, not to torment. It reshapes the contours of a man's inner world, humbling him, clarifying him. And there's a kind of beauty in allowing that process to unfold without commentary, without comfort, without distraction. He does not deny his suffering, he becomes intimate with it. He tends to it as one would a sacred fire, knowing that in time it will either burn him clean or forge something stronger in its place. Now, there's an expectation today that love should mean full disclosure, that if we care for someone, we must bring them into every dark corner of our experience. But this isn't always love, it's often fear dressed as vulnerability. There's a subtle violence in demanding another to carry what they were never meant to hold. Especially the woman he loves. Her heart may be vast, her compassion endless, but even so, there are trials that belong solely to him, not to protect her from pain, but to protect the meaning of that pain, to allow it to serve its purpose. It's important to understand that some forms of suffering are initiations. They are personal rituals. A man may lose something precious, question everything he's built, fall to his knees in the quiet of his own becoming, and yet say nothing, not because he is numb, but because he is listening. Deep within the silence, something sacred is speaking. And if he breaks that silence too soon, he may never hear it clearly. And what's more, the woman, though deeply loving, may feel helpless in the face of his sorrow. She may try to fix, to soothe, to ask what's wrong. But this is not a wound that needs fixing. It is a passage that needs to be walked. Her desire to be there is not misplaced, but his refusal to burden her is not cruelty. It is reverence. He is not shutting her out. He is holding something within until it transforms, until it is no longer a raw ache, but a shaped truth. And when that moment comes, when he has let the fire do its work, what he shares will not be just pain. It will be insight, depth, presence, a strength she can lean into because he first learned to stand in it alone. You see, we are so quick to speak of trust as openness, of intimacy as emotional transparency. But there is another kind of trust, quieter, older, wiser. It says, I will not ask you to carry this, because I honor what we are building too much to fracture it with what is still unresolved within me. That is not distance. That is discipline. That is love. And perhaps, if she listens closely, she will not feel left behind. She will sense his sorrow like distant thunder, not a storm threatening to break them, but a weather moving through him. Temporary, necessary, transformative. A man's silence in grief is not always a wall. Sometimes it is a womb. And what is born from it may be the very wisdom that allows him to love more deeply, more truly than before. Because in the end, it is not the pain he hides that separates him from love. It is the silence that shapes him into someone worthy of offering it. And in learning to carry his sorrow alone, he becomes the kind of man who no longer needs to be rescued, only met,